Biden's new strategy of attacking Trump on full display this trip. At a campaign reception in Dallas, he told supporters, quote, "Unlike Donald Trump, I don't demonize immigrants. I'm not going to say immigrants are poisoning the blood of the nation. I'm not going to call people rapists. I will not end birthright citizenship." Let's break it down with our power panel. David Avella, GoPac chairman, and Richard Fowler, Fox News contributor. All right, gentlemen, there are a number of key groups where there has been slippage and a shift away from the Biden campaign in 2020 to President Trump. I mean, David, is that just excellent messaging on your part of the GOP, or is there something else going on there?
Well, Hispanic voters are paying more for everyday items, just like all Americans are, since Joe Biden came into office, and they know that. Let me also say, Shannon, what we know is that President Biden is now 12 points lower amongst Hispanic voters than he was in 2020. And the day that Donald Trump starts winning Hispanic voters, the Democrats will be for securing the border.
So let me read something on that point from the New York Times saying this. A decade ago, many Democrats assumed that the extremely high levels of support they received from voters of color during Obama's presidency would continue. The old racial resentment story about Trump's victory was alluring to many progressives because it absolved them of responsibility. If Trump's appeal was all about racism, there was no honorable way for Democrats to win back their previous supporters. Richard.
This is a good point, Shannon, and I think David also brings up a good point. During the State of the Union, I got a chance to watch the State of the Union with a group of undecided black men. I wrote about it for Forbes magazine, and what we found was this. The biggest applause line, to David's point, that these voters got from the president was the fact that he said he would decrease the cost of late fees on credit cards to $8. That was the biggest applause line. He gave an hour-long speech. The thing that got the most applause was $8 late fees, which says exactly that. When it comes to making ends meet, that's what these voters care about. And herein lies the problem for both campaigns. I think for the Biden campaign, he has to talk about what he's done over the past 3 years to make ends meet easier. And for the Trump campaign, he has to talk about what he's going to do to make ends meet. What we've heard a lot from the Trump campaign over the past, since he's been running, is a lot of grievance. We've heard a lot of, the border's not working. We heard a lot of this, inflation that, but we haven't heard any real solutions to make these voters think that when Trump gets into office, he's going to make ends meet easier for these voters. And that's what this election's going to come down to. Who can make the economy work, and who can make it work better?
We know that's what people vote on, and we know that in almost all the polling, it is the top issue. If not, it's number 2. I want to make sure we get to this with you guys, too. Democrats pulling out all the stops to protect President Biden from potential third-party spoilers. The Democratic National Committee now reportedly forming a team of lawyers to monitor how third-party candidates seek ballot access. Now, right now, independent Cornel West and RFK Jr., they're both on ballots in 4 states. The Green Party has secured slots in 19 states, and the No Labels Unity ticket is in 16 states. A veteran Democratic strategist warns the single biggest threat that helps put Trump back in the White House is third-party candidates. It's not Biden's age. It's not whether Trump gets convicted. It's not any of that stuff. RFK Jr. says people want other options.
People say that they're tired of being presented with a choice between the lesser of 2 evils. They want a candidate who they believe in, who gives them a hopeful vision for the future of this country. Our first challenge is to get on the ballot in all states, and we will do that.
But Richard, the DNC says they've got lawyers to keep everybody off the ballots. They're going to monitor that they got on legally and correctly. But it kind of undermines the whole argument of democratic access for all and voter options for all if they're going to have these lawyers who are dedicated to making sure there are fewer options.
Well, look, I think this is about making sure that the process works, but I think let's be very clear. In 2016, this is one of the reasons why a lot of folks say Hillary Clinton didn't win, is that in Michigan and Wisconsin, Jill Stein was on the ballot, and that was the 20,000 vote gap. So the fact that Democrats are now paying attention to how third-party candidates are showing on the ballot says they've learned from their mistakes, and they're going to pay attention. And not only that, but you're going to see the president make visits to these states. We saw the vice president for the first time in American history make the visit to an abortion clinic in Wisconsin. So it's very clear that the White House is paying attention to these things. The Biden campaign is paying attention to things. Now, the question is how will these third-party voters, how will they show up, understanding that 25% to 1/5 of Republican voters at this point in time did not vote for Trump, even though there's no other candidate in the race?
Well, and I will say, David, our recent Fox News polling in Arizona and Pennsylvania showed head-to-head Trump has a significant gap within many of these, 4 or 5 points, that kind of thing. When you throw in the third-party candidates, it ties up the race in a lot of these cases or closes that gap.
Now, for the party that's for democracy and elections, that doesn't prevail when it potentially costs them from winning the
Shouldn't
White
both
House.
parties be for
Interestingly,
democracy in
we
elections?
should be,
Oh, just
and we are. We're actually for
Just
candidates.
checking.
We are for candidates actually being on the ballot. That's why
But
we
it's
don't
clear
have a problem
some of
with
them
Kennedy
do-
being on the ballot. We're not trying to get Kennedy off
Some
the
of them-
ballot in Pennsylvania and in Nevada.
But in some
and
of those places,
Arizona.
it pulls from Trump. It looks like.
Richard's party is trying. That's why they have an entire law firm now set up at the DNC to counter third-party candidates. But let me just say this: in a state like Michigan, it's not a third-party candidate that's going to cost Joe Biden. It's his EV policies that are going to put union workers out of business and out of employment. It's going to cost him a state like Michigan.
The same union workers that just endorsed them?
Well,
No, just checking.
union leadership may have endorsed
I mean,
it. But we'll
in
see
Michigan,
what rank and file members
there's also
do.
the issue of more than 100,000 people who showed up to vote uncommitted because they're very unhappy, the Arab American community, about how he's handling Israel-Hamas. So there are all kinds of landmines out there.
I agree that there are landmines, and I think that's why you see this White House making a clear shift on how they're doing their Israel-Gaza policy. And I mean, you saw the vice president, when she was down in Selma at Bloody Sunday, sort of say, we do need a ceasefire now, and you see a lot of pressure on Bibi Netanyahu to do that.
10 seconds, David. Give me a final
Look,
word.
Joe Biden's biggest problem is Americans know he has caused things to be more expensive and the border to be less secure, and he doesn't have a defense for it.
Well-
And Donald Trump can say, look, we had a good, strong economy when I was president.
Well, those are the top two issues. We'll see how voters feel. All right, thank you for watching the Faulkner Focus. I'm Shana Bream, and today for Harris. Please join me for Fox News Sunday. Outnumbered is right after this quick break.